So, how much do I really like Frogger? Well, if you've been on my YouTube channel for the past few years, you'd think, yeah, this guy's obsessed with Frogger. I mean, I made countless videos talking about Frogger, and I made a whole 100 review video that's like over 2 hours long talking about the entire Frogger franchise, at least up to April of 2023. But here's the thing. As much as I've talked about Frogger, and I really do enjoy Frogger, it's not my absolute favorite franchise. I mean, it is one of my most favorite video game franchises, but it's not my absolute favorite franchise. There are various reasons why I like Frogger, just not everything about Frogger. One of the major reasons being, well, it's about a frog, or frogs, depending on what game you play. And if you know me personally, especially when I was a little kid, you would know that I was obsessed with frogs as a kid. I mean, I still love frogs today, but I was obsessed with them back in the day. So that might have been what got me into Frogger. Or did I like Frogger before I liked frogs? It's kind of a chicken egg thing. I also have a lot of nostalgia for the PS1, PS2, and GBA games. A lot of you who have been following me for a long time will already know this probably, but in case this is the first video you're watching of me talking about Frogger, my first exposure to Frogger was the Frogger game on PS1, the one a lot of us call Frogger He's Back, and then eventually Frogger 2 Swampy's Revenge on PS1, and then eventually I got the GBA games, and eventually one or two of the PS2 games. There was actually a time whenever I liked Frogger more than I liked Sonic, but we'll get back to that. When it comes to the games I'm nostalgic for, I think even if you take away the nostalgia, I still think that they're decent games. Like, even if I didn't grow up with some of these games, I think I would still enjoy them. But I can definitely tell that Frogger He's Back on PS1 probably wouldn't be one of those games. As many videos as I made about this game and sung high praises for it, it is because nostalgia. I mean, I think it has a little bit of charm, but take away that nostalgia and you've got a very flawed game right here, and I can see why people who didn't grow up with it wouldn't enjoy this game as much. And I mean, I've pointed out the flaws even with my nostalgia. I still get frustrated trying to get through some of these levels even if I know them pretty well. But here's the thing. This was one of my very, very few games I had growing up in my, I guess you could say, early gaming days. Most of the time my family would just rent games like Crash and Spyro, at least for the first few years. So playing Frogger was like one of my only options, so I played it a lot and just got used to the levels. I can't say for sure I wouldn't enjoy it at all if I didn't grow up with it, but I will say growing up with it probably helps me enjoy it to this day. But the music in this game is still pretty awesome. Whether you grew up with it or not, it's still pretty great. Moving on to the PS2 era, Frogger the Great Quest was a disaster. I mean, it's more so just funny to play these days. Frogger Beyond is, I didn't really grow up with it, but I couldn't really get used to all the difficulties in the game and all the physics, and I just didn't really like it all that much. Frogger's Adventures The Rescue was actually a decent game, just a little frustrating at times. And Frogger Ancient Shadow was very frustrating. The reason I skipped over Frogger 2 and the GBA games is because I still think those games are decent even without nostalgia. Well, on GBA, at least when it comes to the Frogger's Adventures games. The other two are eh. But going back to Frogger's Adventures The Rescue, which is my favorite out of the PS2 era, if you took away the nostalgia, I would probably just find the game to be alright, because the game has a lot of frustrating puzzles and a lot of frustrating enemy placements. They have too many at once at times, which is honestly kind of a common theme in the later Frogger games. But it's just overall, it's not a perfect game, and I can see that now, so I don't really come back to it as much. But that doesn't mean I dislike it now. I mean, I still am very fond of it. I kind of have that same feeling with Frogger Helmet Chaos on DS and PSP, because that game is also fine, but it also has a lot of frustrating things in it, so I just don't come back to it as much. But then the Frogger games after that were just kind of okay or not very good until Frogger 3D came out, which is, again, I think these days it's fine. But then after Frogger Hyper Arcade Edition, it's pretty much just become a mobile series. The only thing you might get on consoles is a re-release of the arcade game, and that's about it. But now, the reason I got into Frogger in the first place is because, well, it's very simple to learn, there's not a whole lot of controls to remember, so it's just easy to get into. But here's the overall thing about Frogger for me. As a kid, I loved this franchise. As an adult, I still love it, but mainly because of nostalgia. I have fond memories of it. I just don't enjoy playing the games as much as I used to. So as I got older and played more games out of different franchises, I just realized that there were better games, at least in my opinion, there were better games than Frogger. So at this point you might be asking, well, if you don't like playing the Frogger games as much as you used to, then why have you made so many videos about it in the past few years? Well, this is probably going to sound stupid, but the reason I made a bunch of Frogger videos, at least in the first few years, I kind of wanted to stick out as the Frogger guy a little bit, like when it comes to video game reviewing. Like, if you know who Ant Dude is, which more of you probably know about Ant Dude than me, but if you know who Ant Dude is, he makes a lot of Kirby videos, so he's kind of known as the Kirby guy. I kind of wanted to be something like that, but with Frogger, basically. So I just figured if I ever became a bigger YouTuber, then maybe Frogger would get more recognition and get a little more love these days. And I don't know why I thought I would get big, but you know, that's kind of what I had in mind back in the day. If I wanted to talk about my most favorite video game franchise of all time, then I'd be talking about Sonic. That's another franchise where I don't play the games as much as I used to, but I still play them a lot more than I do Frogger, so I would be talking about Sonic. But the thing about Sonic is, he's definitely a lot more recognizable than Frogger. There's been tons of YouTube channels committed to Sonic, there's just been tons of people in general who've been associated with Sonic, so I feel like I just wouldn't have stuck out as much. So I just decided to go with Frogger. But like I said, while I may not play the games as much as I used to, and I don't enjoy the games as much as I used to, I am still very fond of this series. I still love Frogger overall. So to answer the original question, how much do I really like Frogger? Well, I love it. Just not as much as I used to, or I guess more so not in the same way that I used to. It's a bit of a late recording here, but I should probably clarify that basically when it comes to Frogger, I have to be in the right mood to be able to enjoy the games. It's the same case with a lot of other types of games. I'm just not in the mood for it as much as I used to be, but when I'm in that right mood, I can really enjoy the games. Now let me ask you, how much do you really like Frogger? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and leave a like, and subscribe if you want to see potentially more of these or any other types of videos that I make. Thank you for watching.